All right, I'm Chris Bigger, Superintendent of Schools here in Chambersburg School District. We're doing this educational exchange to share with the public what we're doing for our One Trojan Community brand and hope that all our schools are schools of distinction by 2030. So today I have with me Gary Carter, our Chief of Safety in the district and Director of Security. So Gary, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been here in the community, and how long you've been working at this job?
So I've been here 7 years now, going on 7 years.
Okay.
I grew up, was born in Chambersburg, grew up in Chambersburg, graduated from Chambersburg. Prior to coming here, I was a Pennsylvania State Trooper for 25 years, and then I decided this was the next job that I should lead into.
And you weren't busy enough, so you put on football coach there too, right?
I am the head high school football coach now too, yeah.
Well, good for you, and thank you for doing all that you do.
Thank you.
If you could, let's start off with just safety in general. If you had to advise parents or share with parents, what they can do in just anything in safety, what would you tell parents to start?
Honestly, it's kind of a tough question, believe it or not, but parents are a big supporter of us, but then they can also be on the other side of that too. It's I think that if I could tell the parents one thing is trust the district, trust what we do, know that we're going to communicate if something really bad is going on, but also have conversations with your children about safety and security. If you have questions, reach out, whether it be to an administrator or to our police department, but if they have information that certainly would be viable for us to know about, that would create safety concerns, then just call, and communicate.
And how can they do that? They can call, they can do safe to say, they can talk to a teacher, you.
That's correct. And a lot of times we'll get information through administrators, teachers, counselors, somebody that somebody knows.
Right.
And that's the easiest thing. My information, email and phone numbers online, and I would encourage parents to call with any questions that they have about safety and security.
Excellent. In your 7-year time, you've been chief here and director. What has remained the same, and what has changed maybe in that 7-year period since you've been doing this job?
I don't know that a lot has stayed the same.
Okay.
I think we've moved forward leaps and bounds in safety and security. Certainly the students, different students, but they're
we'll
the
talk
same.
a little bit about those enhancements then. So go through the 7-year time frame, just an overview of the enhancements on safety.
Yeah, so when I first got here, there was kind of a change in criminal proceedings, and what I mean by that is vaping became legal. And honestly, vaping is an issue for us. Right. So, we have some vape detectors in the schools. We have better communication systems in our schools now. We have a lot of cameras that help deter and protect and allow us to view if we have an incident and try and solve incidents. And we have a pretty good solvability rate in our schools because of what we're doing. But I think the other thing that we're doing is, run, hide, fight. We've transitioned to that since I've gotten here. And just the overall district-wide safety procedures that everybody's following, we're consistent, and just trying to be have that overall overreaching safety effect in the district, plus more officers. We also have a K-9 right now, a narcotics K-9.
So we've increased officers, added a K-9 person, more enhancements in general technology.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and working with buildings and grounds and technology and administration.
Right.
It's literally our safety procedures and stuff in the district has grown a lot.
Yeah. Well, thanks for championing that. It does take a champion in a district this size to champion safety. It's easy to fall back into old patterns and constantly reminders of, don't prop doors, and the basics.
Sure.
What would you say are the most pressing issues in current time?
I would say two things. Certainly mental health is always a challenge because you never know when it's going to hit, and it can hit throughout the district, anybody in the district. But the number one thing that I think that we deal with in the district is vaping, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. It is truly an epidemic.
Yeah.
And how you deal with it, how you tackle it, whether it be through the court system, whether it be judges, juvenile probation, and just district programming, which sometimes is a little bit of a struggle.
So you said vaping was legalized in your time frame, and that was for folks over a certain age,
over 18
not in
years old.
School, and certainly not under a certain age.
That is correct.
What are you most worried about that can happen with the vaping devices that maybe people don't think about? Like what's in them, what's part of them?
I mean, the problem is with vaping, you don't know what's in them.
Okay.
Because all the compounds change, depending on the laws. They're always kind of skirting that. and that's just being honest. Vaping, everybody says it's better than regular tobacco use,
Right.
and that is completely not true.
Right.
In my opinion, vaping is highly addictive.
Yeah.
You have THC now, which the kids are, getting addicted to,
Right.
whether it be outside of school. If they have parents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters that are
Right.
legally allowed to do it, the ease of access also is an issue.
Yeah.
So trying to, develop programming, we work with the Franklin County District Attorney's Office, juvenile probation. So
Right.
we're taking a team approach to
Yeah.
it, but it is extremely difficult to attack that problem because it's so readily available.
Yeah, it seems like we can only react to it because we have very little tools in our tool belt to help stop it.
Correct, unfortunately.
We're just catching everybody with it and punishing.
We are, and that's what, you're trying to get away from it. You're trying
Sure.
to divert that
Right.
to an extent because you want to get the kids help.
Yeah.
I would say our job's not to arrest kids.
Yeah.
Our job is to get them help and lead them in the right direction, and it's just what that looks like.
So out of all the incidents you respond to or deal with administration, you're saying most of them are vaping at this point.
Unfortunately, yes.
And if you go after vaping, what's number 2?
I would say we have our share of fights.
Okay.
But I do want to say something about fighting.
Yeah, what's a fight? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a fight, on average in our school district probably lasts 15 to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
They're very quick. Our administrators, teachers, adults in the building do an outstanding job
Yeah.
of deterring that and breaking those up. It's more, peer issues, social media issues.
Right.
But we don't have near the fights that everybody thinks we do.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
say, man, Chambersburg schools are
Yeah.
dangerous. They're truly not.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes that happens, and
Yeah.
then we have to mediate it, peer mediate it, and
Yeah.
try and move
Well,
forward.
as the superintendent of a smaller school, it's a volume issue. If you have 1 or 2 fights in a small school, you times it by 4 because it's a large high school. It's the
Correct.
same number. You just don't recognize it that
Correct.
way. Talk a little bit about a transient threat and a non-transient threat and how we determine that. So when folks hear and see us communicate about a threat, what does that mean?
Yeah, so the big thing now is threat assessment proceedings and procedures. So we're
And that's
trying
new.
to-
And that's new.
It absolutely is. So we're trying to get to the root of the problem or head things off before they
Yeah.
happen. So a transient threat is when I'm all of a sudden angry and I make a threat to you, I'm going to bring a gun to school and
Right.
do A, B, C, or D. You don't really have the means to do it. You just said it out of anger.
Right.
We dispel that. Administrators, police officers.
We go through a
counselors.
process to do that.
There's a process.
Lots of involvement of people, evaluations.
100%. And every one of those is looked at individually.
Yep.
Every one of those is we get them in. If we know about it,
Right.
it's vetted completely. The difference between a transient threat and one that's substantiated is we believe that there's truly a threat or that student would have access to some or may follow through with
Right.
it. And, we're trying to get them off of that pathway
Yeah.
early on. So
And that's when you would get communications from the district pretty aggressively to everyone if we did have that likely to happen.
that is correct. And we
Yeah.
work with outside agencies, the Franklin County DA's
Right.
office, the state police, Chambersburg Borough, juvenile probation, children
Right.
and youth. So there's a team approach to a lot of that, even if it's in the school.
Yeah.
But if it extends to outside, then we may need people
Yeah.
to help us. But they're all vetted, all of them.
And I know we don't talk about this too much, but from my view, any threat that's given, there is a consequence to it. It's just a matter of how bad the consequence is. You can't say things these days without a consequence.
That is correct.
Yeah,
We
it's
encourage
just part
students
of- it's right.
to mind their P's and Q's and make
Yeah.
sure that acting out of anger. We try and negate
Right.
that as much as we can. Have conversations, do peer mediation. But yeah, if you say something that's highly volatile, it's certainly going to be looked into, and there's definitely going to be consequences
Yeah.
one way or the other.
I'm going to be sending a survey home to families here shortly, either right before Easter or after Easter, and it's going to ask a safety question. A couple of them in there. One of them is if you had wanted to see enhanced safety efforts in the district, it has 4 responses. It's more officers, more resources to mental health, metal detectors was the third option, and a fourth option was more training. If you had to pick out of those 4 and pick 1 through 4 or the top 2, what would you pick from your seat?
Obviously, I'm going to say every one of them. My opinion is
It's always all of them, but if resources
is.
run out, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's resources, it's training, it's mental health. Because I think if you get to problems before they get bigger,
Yeah.
Training, educating, communicating with
Yeah.
parents and students, I really think we would have less issues
Yeah.
because there's more information that's out
Yeah.
there and readily available.
And the state's done a nice job of providing resources. The PCCD grant money,
Correct.
like they're stepping up to the plate providing resources to help us solve this.
That
and they
is
do have a
correct.
ranking system too. So as much as we might want to say we'd like to buy this or do this, we have rules to follow with the state money.
Yeah,
there's a tier 1, a tier 2, and a tier 3. And we're just about done with tier 1 of all the requirements, or almost, that we can get into tier 2. And so could you give an example of a tier 1 versus a tier 2?
So a tier 1 that a lot of school districts struggle with is bollards in schools. You know, devices to prevent somebody from running into the school.
A car or something.
You know, tier 2, you get into some of the bigger purchases, whether it be cameras, whether it be radio communication.
Gotcha.
You know, larger projects that would be district wide as opposed to you know, bollards and things like that. Fencing was also in tier 1.
Yeah.
So some things like that.
One thing that's impressed me, you know, coming back to the district in 2023 is the cooperation with the local police and the state police and you. It seems like a very good, amicable relationship. Everybody's all hands on deck. Everybody helps in every situation.
100%. It helps that a lot of our officers are retirees from the state police or the Chambersburg Borough. You know, so those relationships are already there. And it goes a long way. And I will say the Chambersburg Borough and PSP are very, very professional and outstanding and provide us you know, outstanding resources.
And that's no short effort to you. You know, having the history in the department like you have helps a lot. You know who to talk to, how to talk to everybody and get everybody on the same page. So, hey, thanks for coming in. I appreciate your time, Gary.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.